Don't even think about it. Get down off that horse.
A couple really classic movies turned 50 this year. It's been 50 years since 1975. Steven Spielberg's Jaws is one, which we're going to be discussing later this summer. Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon is another one, based on the 1844 novel The Luck of Barry Lyndon by William Makepeace Thackeray.
Yes, plenty, of course.
Starring Ryan O'Neal, Marissa Berenson, Patrick McGee, Hardy Kruger, Diana Corner, and Gay Hamilton. Barry Lyndon was Kubrick's next film after A Clockwork Orange, and using several of the same cast members from A Clockwork Orange, including Philip Stone, Jeffrey Quigley, Stephen Burkoff, Anthony Sharp, and Pat Roach.
He's not feeling too good again this morning, Dad.
Yes, I heard. You know what time we got in last night?
No, I don't, love. I take me sleepers.
I wonder, where exactly is it he goes to work of evenings?
Kubrick originally wanted to direct a Napoleon biopic, but after the failure of the Dino De Laurentiis produced Waterloo in 1970, nobody wanted to finance another Napoleon film for a while. We'd always see Kubrick's various obsessions play out on screen. In the case of Barry Lyndon, it's his interest in history, particularly in the mid to late 1700s. A historical period piece, it's easy to see how that would have played out in a Napoleon film. Barry Lyndon takes place between 1750 and 1789, encompassing both the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution.
Barry's first taste of battle was only a skirmish against a small rearguard of Frenchmen who occupied an orchard beside a road down which a few hours later the English main force would wish to pass.
Not mentioned in the film, but one of my favorite historical facts. The 7 Years' War was actually sparked by George Washington, whose attack on a French scouting party at Fort Necessity as an ambassador for the British sparked a diplomatic row that would spiral into the global conflict between France, Austria, Saxony, Sweden, and Russia on one side, and Prussia, Hanover, Britain, the American colonies, and India on the other. A 7-year war with fronts on 5 continents: Europe, Asia, North America, South America, and Africa.
Let it suffice to say that England and Prussia were allies and at war against the French, the Swedes, the Russians, and the Austrians.
The young Redmond Barry's life is constantly transformed by the kind of impulsive violence common at the time. His father is a genteel Irish lawyer who's killed in a duel, and his mother then becomes obsessed and overprotective of her son. When we see Redmond Barry, he's awkward and nervous and in love with his flirtatious cousin, Nora Brady, whose hand he wants to win, but has been promised to British Army Captain John Quinn, whose enormous dowry is promised to his cousins. They scheme to get Redmond Barry out of the way by faking a situation where Barry shoots John Quinn in a duel, and then they make him flee to Dublin. Barry is immediately robbed by highwaymen, and then joins the British Army going to war in the 7 Years' War.
How do you do? I'm Captain Feeney.
Captain Feeney.
Captain Feeney at your service.
The Captain Feeney.
None other.
Along with his lifelong family friend, Captain Grogan, who admits that Barry's cousins tricked him into fleeing. When Grogan is killed in battle, Barry inherits his fortune from Quinn's dowry, and tries to flee the army pretending to be an officer bearing a message, but gets caught by Prussian troops, where he's pressed into service as a spy that's supposed to work as a manservant for the Chevalier de Balbery, who the Prussians suspect is an Irish con artist.
I have a confession to make to you. I'm an Irishman. And my name is Redmond Barry. I was abducted into the Prussian army 2 years ago, and now have been put into your service by my Captain Pottsdorf.
Upon hearing the Chevalier's brogue, Barry double-crosses the Prussians and becomes the Chevalier's accomplice. They escape together and go on a hot gambling streak. But Barry wants to be a kept man, and he manages to marry Lady Lyndon after her husband gets cucked so hard he dies. Lyndon's son, Lord Bullingdon, a young boy, immediately knows he has bad intentions. But Barry manages to have an anchor baby and stick around, ingratiating himself into the English aristocracy.
The ill treatment of the insolent Irish upstart whom you have taken into your bed. It is not only the lowness of his birth and the general brutality of his manners which disgusts me, but the shameful nature of his conduct towards your ladyship, his brutal and ungentlemanlike behavior.
Barry begins abusing his wife and stepson while cherishing his new son and draining all of their money, being nothing more than a lech. The clashes between Barry and his stepson get worse and worse. He orders his stepson out of the house, and Barry's other son dies in an accident, leading him to sink into debilitating alcoholism. Finally, Lord Bullingdon returns, coming full circle. He challenges Barry to a duel, shooting him in the leg, which has to be amputated, and ending the hold he has on the family.
Cock your pistol and prepare to fire.
Leon Vitale, who played the adult Lord Bullingdon, was so taken by Stanley Kubrick, he went on to be his personal assistant. The themes of Barry Lyndon have been analyzed constantly. One is fate and luck, which was a big factor in every story about Napoleon too. Only Barry Lyndon is not a man of action or a man of destiny. He's a man who seems to be pushed along by events. As Roger Ebert says, he's a man that things happen to, and as Danny Boyle, director of 28 Years Later, has commented, Barry is actually mostly completely passive in most of his story. Things happen around him, entire wars, and Sir Charles Lyndon suddenly dying as if being forced out by a hand. The film is narrated by Michael Hordern, who continually hints at fate and luck pushing Barry's story forward. He's almost completely helpless most of the time, and the choices he does make are terrible, such as not shooting his stepson, who then shoots him in the leg. It's an interesting pairing with The Clockwork Orange, which asks if it's possible to use force means to change someone's nature. In both battle scenes and the duels, Kubrick has the violence here as an organized force, with rules of engagement and a proper order to them. An attempt to tame something much darker. Much like the aristocracy that Barry Lyndon is mocking, an ordered facade held together by nobles vouching for prospective aristocrats and purchased titles.
But there were IRA incidences going on, and we were a British company. We had to change all our plates on our car. I wore an American flag shirt around just so they'd not confuse me with the actual Irish. And they were threatening. They were threatening, and they did threaten Stanley's family. And they even came to the door, and the maid said, "Don't let them in. Those aren't painters." They said, "We're here to paint. We're here to paint." And she said, "They're not painters. Don't let them in."
At the same time Barry Lyndon was filmed, the Troubles were happening, and Stanley Kubrick actually became paranoid in Ireland that the IRA would kill him. They did send him threatening messages. One more thing, Kubrick was very inspired by the Rococo paintings of the 18th century, including Vermeer, Brouwer, and Ter Borch, as well as William Hogarth. Kubrick was desperate to avoid the artificially lit costume dramas of the time. The cinematographer John Alcott and Kubrick avoided electric lights, using candlelight wherever possible, and super fast 50mm lenses. Among the 4 Oscars won for Barry Lyndon were Best Cinematography, Best Scoring, Best Costume Design, and Best Art Direction.
And as I cannot personally chastise this low-bred ruffian, and as I cannot bear to witness his treatment of you, and loathe this horrible society as if it were the plague, I have decided to leave my home and never return.